Good evening. Welcome to our Tuesday night podcast. Hope everybody had a great holiday weekend. We had a fantastic time, tons of food, and a good amount of people showed up at our house. We had a really good time. Pastor Ford was there. And so I hope everybody had a good, safe weekend. We're glad you're joining us tonight. And tonight we're going to be talking about the future. And the topic is, what about your future? I was actually originally thinking of calling this Varsity Blues because I wanted to appeal to a certain crowd, but honestly, I didn't really think anybody would get what that title came from. And then there was also running the risk of YouTube, saying we're running into some kind of rights issues or something like that. But anyway, in 2019, there was a scandal surrounding college admissions fraud. Do you remember that story or the news about that?
It involved some particular what do you call it? Some particular congressman or something. I think
It was actually a lot of people
with it.
Yeah, it was a lot of people. It was a lot of. It was like, I think it was like 50 something people were indicted.
I remember.
Yeah. So anyway, the story is there was an investigation done in this scandal, basically involving like a whole bunch of famous A-list actors and
I remember it.
Government officials and school officials. I mean, it was really wild. Some of them were like people making their kids look like a white. Actually, one specific story, a white girl was like. Put her application was she was like a high grade tennis player. She was black. She was African American. So but she was actually white and didn't even play tennis. And so like there was like this, they were just trying to pitch these applications in a way that would make them. Some guy got asked, basically, pay me $450,000 and I'll get your kid into this school. Schools like Stanford and USC. Apparently, out of the 50 indicted, I think 15 were specifically towards USC, which is no surprise. Southern California, tons of money, tons of, people. And so anyway, I'm saying all that because I was thinking about the idea of future. We are, recently starting to try and get in contact with high school kids and kids of that age and folks that, in a lot of ways haven't been churched, don't have any idea about God. They're kind of their future is up in the air. They have no idea what they're going to do. But it made me think about this story. And as I started researching it, I thought, what is that really? And this is a question. What is something like that? These parents who are trying to bribe and con and scam their kids' way into a school. What does that say about the parents? What does something like that say about parents and how they feel about their kids' future?
Well, I can't really give too much of a response.
Give me your opinion. That's
to
what I'm
that
after.
Because that's not that's not my domain. My domain is Bible questions.
Yeah. No, but this is
I mean, obviously the parents, obviously it says that they really value education for sure. I mean, that they're willing to do some kind of criminal act in order to get their kids into a higher learning school. I mean, it definitely shows that's a very significant thing to them. And so, I mean, beyond that, there's not really a whole lot more that I can say about that.
How do you think, so like, maybe talk about yourself when you were, you remember high school pretty well, yeah? I know you're like getting up there in age. I don't know how much you remember high school.
I remember high school. I remember how I wanted to just get it over with.
What were you thinking about? Like when it came to like, future planning and stuff like that, what was your mindset towards?
Well, I didn't think about it a lot because the idea was I was just going to go and become an electrical engineer. And because of the background of my dad, I always, in my mind, my upbringing and the background of my dad, we weren't a rich family. We were a rich family, but we didn't act like a rich family. It's hard to explain. My dad worked very, very hard, built up a business, sold the business, and we moved to Tucson, Arizona. and we were in a very nice. We lived in a very nice neighborhood in the upper middle class area of Tucson, but we were still middle class people. The way, because that's how we had been. I mean, I was 15 when we moved, and so the first 15 years of my life was just working class. We didn't buy a lot of stuff. We didn't even buy a lot of candy. We were very thankful when my mom went to. Well, when my mom
what
went
a
to
sad life. No
when my
candy.
when my mom went to work for the candy company, it was like, yay, we finally got candy, because she used to bring it home from work. They had back things have changed a lot since then. They'll sell crappy candy now, but back then, they had high standards and things like that for candy. So anything that didn't pass QA was allowed to be taken home. And
high standards for candy.
High standards for anything.
Yeah,
really.
No, I understand what you're saying.
So for me, I wasn't really thinking, of like getting a degree at some prestigious school or something like that. The idea was I was going to become an electrical engineer, whatever that meant. And so my plan was just to get through high school and then to take my required courses at Pima College, which was the community college. And then after I got those done, then to go to a university, which probably would have been U of A, but I hadn't actually thought about it in any kind of, major way, because, the U of A was the university, and that's all there was to it. It was just a university. So that was my thinking until I graduated high school, and then decided, to take a gap year, which they call it a gap year. I'll tell you, it's a year to decide whether or not you want to ruin your life, is what it should be called. It should be called a destruction year, because that year was the worst mistake of my life. It was to not go to school immediately after high school. But yeah, so that was my thinking about it. Was just, go to whatever, college, university, whatever, not anything with any kind of prestige.
So based on your experience, let's fast forward to modern day, like based off your experience with high school age kids and, recently conversations you've had with high school age kids, what do you think is like, or do you think there is a typical mentality or mindset or way of thinking? Like, what do you think goes through the common mind?
Well, the interesting to me is of talking to teenagers, high school age kids. There's no real commonality. I mean, that's the thing I think is interesting, is there's no commonality. They're group. They'll be groups of kids, but each group different from the other groups, and so it's like it's not as social as when I was younger. And I obviously, and I'm quite confident that that's because of cell phones and social media. And so you have these groups of people that they're just groups of people, and I don't think they join together because of common things. It's just kind of like they just group. Maybe they're close by. Maybe they grew up with them or something like that. And so, that's been my interaction, with high school age kids. Is it's not, they're very individual. They're very, very individualistic. It's not, they don't like group together like, as much as in the past. I might be able to look at them and see similarities between them, but they probably wouldn't see themselves in similarities with other people. It's become very individualistic. And like I said, I'm quite confident that that's because of social media. It shouldn't be called social. It should be called anti-social media, basically.
Yeah. So I'm curious now, because this is going to drive at the kind of point that I'm hoping to make tonight, is if you could have a conversation right now. So let me slow down. So I was thinking about, biblically, the idea of future and how God views future. And so I was just running through my own memory, like what are scriptures I remember, thoughts about, specifically surrounding God and telling people about future. And Jeremiah was kind of an easy grab. And if you think about Jeremiah, the whole book of Jeremiah, he mentions the idea of, God's future for man is mentioned a few times. But specifically in the beginning, it's interesting because he's a young man. He actually says, I'm a youth. God's talking to Jeremiah, and he says, I've called you to be a prophet. Before you were formed in the womb, I called you and to be a prophet to the people, to the nations. And so his response is like, oh, whoa, God, I'm just a kid. And he says, I can't talk. And God says, don't say that. And so he then kind of lays out this idea, and he says that God anoints his lips, and then he becomes this prophet, right? So there's this like transition. He's like a kid, and then he's a prophet, and he's like no longer a youth anymore. And so you kind of had this similar transition. You were like 21 when you got saved, right?
Yeah.
Still very young. I remember when I was in high school, I was all over the place. And maybe that's because I was a church kid. Maybe it's because of how I was raised. I don't know. I can't like put my thumb on like what actually it was. But what I can say is my mind was all over the place. I had I mean, the amount of noise and confusion and, you know, my desires pulling me in crazy directions and having no real stability, nothing to really hold on to as like a guiding factor in my life to like drive me in a direction. But God got a hold of you at 21. And it was like right there, you were no longer a kid. It was like, I have a calling. I'm a man of God. There's this transition, like moving you forward and making you want to be a different type of person.
Yeah, I would, that might be an overgeneralization, because the truth is it's when you're a church, when you're raised in church, it's like being raised on a different planet, I think. You know, it's the only way I can really describe it, because when you're raised, particularly me, because I was raised in a non-religious home, this life was all there was. And so this life was, it's almost like because I'm trying to think about, you know, the people that I hung around with, because I didn't know anybody who had any kind of religious background really, or if they did, I didn't know about it. But of the people that I remember, we kind of dropped into two classifications. Either we were serious about life and we did things, you know, to try to achieve, or we weren't serious about life and you just played, and that's all there was to it. And so while I was going to high school, I was the first one. You know, I didn't smoke pot, I didn't take drugs. I did experiment with alcohol. The first time that I ever got drunk, I think I was about 16. And we had a bunch of people over because I was very social. I had a lot of friends, but I didn't do illegal things, you know. So when they would go to bars and things like that at 16 years old and make fake IDs and stuff like that, I didn't do that at first. I didn't do it until later on. Actually, I was probably almost 18 by the time I even started to get the nerve to do that kind of thing. And so that but I had friends, and so we had them over, and then these people, which was kind of the first experience I ever had, brought over, you know, so we were drinking beer, and that was fine. You know, I had drank beer before, but it was like I never really got drunk. You know, it was drink one or two beers, and it was never really a thing of getting drunk. And then that was my first experience with Southern Comfort, which I can't stand the smell of to this day. I got violently sick. I mean, very, very, because, well, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I probably drank at least, I'd say, around a quarter or a third of the bottle myself. You know, I mean, you know, enough to where the room's spinning, I'm throwing up like crazy. And I was so sick that I couldn't even make it to the bathroom anymore. I gave up. I just laid under the table with a bowl next to me because I couldn't function for the rest of the night. And I vaguely remember anything that happened. And so that experience was enough to say, yeah, that's not a good idea. So I'm not going to be doing that anymore. And that was it, you know. So from there, it was kind of like, you know, mostly just trying to get through high school. I mean, that was really the issue. So I didn't do a lot until after I graduated. And then after I graduated, I really super started experimenting. But like I said, because I was serious about life, when I was experimenting with drugs, I was literally experimenting with drugs. What do these do for me? You know, it wasn't a thing of I'm just going to go out and learn how to do all this stuff. I bought a pack of cigarettes at 16. I think it was about 16. Bought a pack of cigarettes, smoked one cigarette, smoked another cigarette. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Why in the world do people do this? And I literally crunched up the pack and threw it away. And that was the last of smoking cigarettes. And so that was a lot of my experience was, you know, I'm trying things, but I'm trying to figure out how this makes my life better. You know, it wasn't so much I'm just trying it because there are things to try. I just wasn't that kind of person. I knew people like that, but I wasn't. So for me, the idea, because it's kind of a long way around of saying that, you know, the idea of God getting a hold of me and me becoming a man, that happened after as soon as I moved out of the house. You know, I was already kind of on my own. I was independent. I had a job. I had a car at 16, and I wasn't home a lot after that. And so I was going to school. So my last year of high school, at 17 years old, my last year of high school was only till 11 o'clock. And then at nighttime, I went to the university or to the college, to the community college, because they didn't have an electronics course. And so I was able to take the electronics course at the college for high school credit. And so that's where I was, you know, is for the most part. So I was already kind of, you know, the way you're describing it, I was already kind of a man at 17 years old. I was already on my way. You know, I was fairly, I wasn't a goof off, you know, in terms of that kind of thing. I wasn't trying to do crazy stuff. I wasn't going out with people and doing dangerous things. I just wasn't that kind of a person. And so at 17, when I moved out of the house, like I said, it was experimenting, and I liked it. You know, I liked it. I smoked pot for the first time. I think I was 17. I had just graduated high school, and I was working at a pizza place, and the guys at the pizza place were always trying to get me to smoke pot. And, you know, I mean, they were just full on evangelists. I mean, literally every time you come, so is today the day kind of a thing. And I remember getting into a fight with my girlfriend, and I said, all right, let's do it. And they were like, yay, you know, kind of a thing. It was like they get victory for them. So I got high and I went to go deliver a pizza that was 10 minutes away, and it took me an hour to get there because I'm just driving around mindlessly and really enjoying myself. And I came back, they were all wild-eyed, and they're like, how you been gone forever? You know, we thought something happened to you. And I said, no, I'm good. It just took me a long time to deliver the pizza, you know. It's like, this is great. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. You know, I mean, I was sold, you know, and so that was it. And so I became a regular pot smoker after that. And, you know, my life was about smoking pot, but still serious. But that was the problem is that I wasn't mature enough to understand that smoking pot made you stupid. And so I went to work and I did a terrible job, you know, because I just, you know, wasn't paying attention. And so, you know, I started getting fired from jobs, and, you know, then my life, I started, had a lot of free time during that time because I wasn't working very much. And so I started going to clubs with my friends and drinking and, you know, learning how to drink, you know, to where I could get drunk without getting sick and, you know, and still be able to kind of maintain myself. And then, you know, it went downhill from there. I mean, that was it. You know, I was working. I ended up at a goofy job and working as a hotel, a restaurant busboy, and, you know, drinking all day, smoking pot as often as I could get the chance, and just, you know, using all my money to pay for rent and for drugs and for a little bit of food. And that was it. I mean, that was just my whole life, you know, and gas for my car. And so that was it. And so, but, you know, I wasn't a kid anymore. You know, I was a full on adult, you know, but partying and not irresponsible, but not irresponsible as a little kid way. I wasn't, you know, playing video games and, you know, and, you know, wanting to go, you know, miniature golfing and things like that. I mean, I wasn't trying to be a kid, you know, and doing silly little kid things. Yeah. And, you know, go-karting, stuff like that. You know?
Yeah. When I say, I don't.
And so I wasn't doing any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. You know, I was just, you know, so I was already thinking about the future.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting at. I was already thinking about the future. It was like, I can't keep doing this the rest of my life, because this is going to wreck my life. Yeah, I can't keep doing this. But it was I was only doing it because it was an addiction. I mean, that's all there was to it. It was an addiction. I was caught in the fog. And so that was a lot of it. So becoming a Christian was welcome. It was a welcome relief to me, to be honest, because I was already living a life that wasn't going to go anywhere. I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere worthwhile. And so becoming a Christian. And I was thinking about that when you started the question. I was wondering where you were going to go with the question. And I thought, because I thought you were going to ask me what my advice would be or what I would speak to.
I didn't actually, so to be fair, I didn't actually ask a question.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask that question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you said it looked like you wanted to talk, so I stopped.
Oh, I see.
I was going to say,
because I thought you were getting ready to ask the question.
I was
what
going
would
to
you
ask.
say?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Okay. Well,
I was going to say, if you could talk to yourself back then, right now, what would be the advice you would give yourself?
I will go a little further than that, and I will say that I would speak to anybody, who, including myself.
You're just skipping my questions, man.
Yeah, including myself, because the thing is that because I'd already had a clear idea of what I wanted to say, and it's like, man, we're talking to high school kids right now. If I had my chance to talk to high school kids right now, I would say I would put it in this order. If you are living in a non-religious home and you really aren't all set for your future, you're still kind of realistic about this, that you don't want to be an office slave, for the rest of your life, and you're trying to work out, how can I have a life? Yes, you want to get an education. Yes, you want to get a good job. Yes, you want those things, but so you can have a life, not so you can be, like I said, an office slave and, just work for money for the rest of your life. And you are an analytical person. I would say that if you will give your life to Jesus, you will absolutely enjoy being a Christian. Absolutely enjoy being a Christian, because there's nothing that I could ever imagine that could be more rewarding and fulfilling and challenging and enjoyable all at the same time than to discover that God is real and that you can have a personal relationship with Jesus that is, so you're not, an office slave. I mean, it was like, for me, that was because I became a punk rocker, and because I went that direction because I didn't want to just fill, a position in life, just some cookie cutter, person. I always had in my mind, I don't want to be one of the, billions of people in the earth. I want to be something else, and so becoming a Christian gave me that opportunity, because God's made us as individuals, and maybe social media is actually helping with this, is God's made us individuals, and having a relationship with Him, being who you are, is a fantastic thing, and being able to go re-inject yourself back into society as someone who's been saved and has come in an encounter with Jesus and is familiar with the Bible and familiar with what God says and are living that kind of a life. Number one, you're never bored. There's never a boring moment, because you want some excitement, go out in front of a nightclub and start preaching, and see what happens. It won't be boring. I can assure you that. People will throw things at you. They'll, but the amazing thing about it is that people come up to you and they want to know what you're talking about. And that, I mean, for me, that's some of my fondest memories, are being in front of nightclubs, talking to, here these people are, in these nightclubs, miserable, trying to pretend like they're having a good time. And it's like, I've been there. I know what that's like, and to just be able to, be able to have the answer. And that's the thing is that I've been thinking a lot about this over the last several weeks or so, is that there are so many people who go to church they don't have the answer. They think they have the answer. I was talking to my son about this. I said, most Christians are just playing grab butt. And the reason why I say that is because I remember when I was in baseball. I was probably 12 years old, and that's what our coach would always say when we were goofing off. As he would say, oh, you didn't come here to play grab butt, and it had such a, it was like, it was embarrassing to have that be said to you, that you are playing grab butt, because it's like, that's not what I'm doing, obviously, but equating goofing off to doing that. And it really did sober us up, and we just started seriously practicing after that. But that's, I think, a lot of what, a lot of people who go to church, are doing is the same thing. They're just goofing off. They're not taking Christianity seriously. It's not a serious thing to them. It's like I said, it's grab butt. It's just they've built, relationships with people. They've got friends there or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, they're not really interested in the things of God. They're more interested in the social elements of the church than they are really, actually being used by God to reach other people for the gospel. But that's why I said specifically about people who don't have a church background and are not wanting to be office slaves and these kinds of things. Because most church kids, my experience has been, is most church kids, they want to be office slaves, because they want to make a lot of money, and to have a lot of stuff. And that really does comprise quite a number of people that would be regular churchgoers and have been raised in church, because the idea of being a Christian, they've never had that experience of being born again. They only know that they go to an altar and pray a prayer, and then that somehow counts. And then they just keep doing the same things that they did before they prayed that prayer. There's nothing really different. And so that's what I would say. It's, if you're that kind of person who doesn't have a religious background or Christian background, or or maybe your parents or family had a religious background, but you've never been into it. This is it. This is what you're looking for in life. If, like I said, if you don't want to be an office slave, you're not interested in just some shallow existence of just having money, and doing shallow things, but you really want your life to have meaning and purpose. You will absolutely enjoy being a Christian.
Kay has got a question. And by the way, I usually say this in the beginning, and I neglected to this time. Forgive me. But yes, we do ask and offer the opportunity for you to ask questions in the chat box. This is live. We are currently, well, unless you're watching this after 8 o'clock today, but we are live, and you can ask questions, throw them in the chat box. If you have questions about anything, even if they're off topic, throw them in, and we welcome your input here. Kareen is asking, considering your life before and after Jesus, do you think you would have ended up where you are today, or do you think you'd be in IT, which you loved?
I honestly, I think I have no idea where I would end. I used to say, that I would have probably ended up just, drinking myself to death. But the truth of the matter is, I was really tired of that, and it was badly affecting my life. And I can't imagine that whole nightclub life scene would have kept me going, because I really did want to quit. In fact, the 2 months before I became a Christian, 2 months before I became a Christian, not the entire, but the 2 months before, I had actually moved into an apartment with a friend of mine, and had totally didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell any of my friends where I went, because I didn't want to have anything to do with them anymore, because all my friends now were just living a party lifestyle. And so I didn't tell them, and I got my job, and I was really trying to get out of that lifestyle. The problem was that being sober, when I say sober, I mean not smoking pot or drinking. It was difficult to get out of it altogether. I don't know that I could have ever, if I would have ever got out of it altogether or not. But I do know that it's not the direction I wanted my life to be. And so I really can't say where I would be at this point without Jesus, other than to say that I know I would not be living such a fulfilling life and such a purpose-filled life as being a Christian. I know that wouldn't have been the case, because at the absolute best, I would have been, like I said, I kept saying, like I've been saying, an office slave. I'd have just been working,
Yeah.
and that would be, I'd be like most people today, and just, working. I was listening to the KOIT Christmas thing, and they did this thing today, which I thought was quite interesting. They're doing a raising money for the children's UCSF Children's Hospital. And there was a person on there who was talking about their kid, and their kid was in a surgery for 9 hours, and she was explaining about this surgery, and she said, it was difficult because my husband couldn't be there. And I thought, why couldn't your husband be there? Your child is about to die. This surgery may be life or death for your child, and your husband can't be there. And I thought, I know why. I would hope that I was wrong, but he's an office slave. I know my child may die, but I gotta work. We need the money. And what a tragedy. What a horrible way to live your life. That's, thank God that's not me.
Yeah.
And I know that could have been me, or it would have been the party scene. So it would have been one or the other, know. So I'm very, very grateful that I got saved.
What does youth have, or what part does youth play in calling positive or negative? Going back to the scripture, Jeremiah's response, I'm too young.
Yeah. Well, it's an excuse. I'm too young is an excuse, because he's basically trying to get out of it. It's not so much that he's saying I'm too young, but I would do this if I was older.
Yeah.
He's just saying I'm too young, so I can get out of it, kind of a thing. But the truth of the matter is that, personally, my experience has been is that for people to become Christians older in their older years in life, and also I can say Christians who are not heavily active in the younger years of their life, they both kind of go the same direction. It's really hard to change. It's very hard to change. You find yourself just belly aching about everything. You're just complaining about how hard it is to change, and trying to do this and trying to do that and trying to do the other things. So you make these sort of, resolutions, that you're going to change, and then you don't, But as a youth, you have there's just a dynamic of youth too, where change is changing all the time. You think about it, kids are, they go to kindergarten, and then, they're just playing around, and then thrown into first grade. Okay, now time to learn.
Yeah.
And then, they go through grade school, and then middle school. Okay, now it's time to start switching classes every hour, and then, usually they're going to different schools along the way. So they're just having a whole new batch of friends, and then, get up to high school, and you've moved out of middle school to high school, and you've got another whole batch of friends. And so these changes are just going on all the time. And like me, your parents are moving as well. So you're not only, not able to stay with the same friends because you're changing schools, but you're also changing neighborhoods. And so the change. And so it's just something, kids are very, very flexible. But then you get to a certain age where you stop all that. You live in one house, and you live there, and you think, I don't want to move, and so you just stay there, and, you stay in the same job, and, and you have the same people that you hang out with all the time. And, you go from 20 years old to 50 years old, and you're still hanging out with the same people. It's like, boring to say the least. And so, it plays a big role because you're flexible. But when you hit that point where you stop changing, it's difficult to become a Christian because you're not flexible anymore. And there's a spiritual reality to that as well. It was funny, the other day I was, we did the Bible hangout on Friday, and I was talking about some things, and it was I do it on I don't do it on purpose to make people uncomfortable, but I am focusing on this knowing that it'll make people uncomfortable, but there's no way to do it otherwise, is to challenge people's Christianity. And there was some feedback that was, you could hear the frustration and the difficulty with change, and wanting to wear the title of being a amazing Christian, but not being, just to wear the title. And the response was, from the new people, the newer converts, was, I need to change. I mean, it was like they just got it. I need to change. I am thinking that I'm doing really great, but the truth of the matter is I'm not doing great. And they, of their own admission, they said this. And but people who have been saved for a while, it's very, very difficult for them to admit that kind of a thing. They would rather just go undercover, and just pretend, and talk about, redefine everything so that it makes them look like they're really, good Christians. And so getting saved when you're young plays a big role, or being young when you get saved, I should say, plays a big role in the success of your salvation. Put in a little plug, next Tuesday, I'm going to be speaking to somebody that's exactly what happened. They got saved at 15 years old. They're now 17 years old and are doing things that there are Christians who've been in church 10, 15, 20 years aren't doing, just because that flexibility, just being able to just be flexible. And so it does play a big, big role in what God's able to do in your life, because God requires flexible people. Inflexible people don't do well, because God is trying to change us. We need to be changed. And the Bible says we're changed as we behold Jesus. We're changed into that same image, and we're far away from being like Jesus, far away. But the truth is that because we become reluctant to change, we actually believe that we're pretty much already there. We're just like Jesus. It's just not, God. We're just like, just the man version of Jesus, and we're nowhere near. None of us are anywhere near that. And change needs to continue throughout your entire Christianity. So getting saved young and making radical changes in your youth. Now I have the benefit now at 60 years old, I can still make radical changes. I can just overnight make radical changes. Moving to different countries or different places is not off the table. It's not like, oh. It's like, yeah, if God called me tomorrow to move to India, I'd move, wouldn't, and sell everything. I don't care. It's just stuff.
Kareen is asking a question on behalf of a friend. What do you tell college students who are questioning the value of their college degree?
Well, questioning the value of your college degree, I think personally, is probably a good idea. because you should, regardless of whether you get a college degree or not, you should be asking yourself, is this really what I want to be doing with my life? And so I think it's really important. And so as a, I don't know if we're talking as a Christian or non-Christian, but I mean, as a non-Christian, there's a whole lot of other questions you need to be asking as well. But as a Christian, you should be asking yourself, is this what God wants me to do? I'm surprised today. And again, this comes back to that, being raised in church thing, is I'm surprised today at how many people make decisions today, regardless of whether they don't care that it's God's will or not. They just say it is. They just say, this is God's will. How do you know it's God's will? Because I got it. This happened. And so it must be God's will. And, it's funny because I was looking at all these side issues. Are not really side issues. I'm illustrating things. But I was I'm looking for a place in Redwood City. And this beautiful house, showed up. I mean, perfect, wonderful house in our price range, fantastic house, set kind of on a hill, has a view of all of the valley of around, San Carlos, San Mateo. You can literally see right out to the water, to the bay. And I'm looking at this and I said, lying devil. Because it's in the wrong neighborhood. It's not where God wants me to be, And so I looked at it and I said, and I pointed at it and I said, that is the devil. I'm not even gonna send a thing to go look at it. But it's all my desires come true. Yeah. It must be God.
Yeah.
Everything that I wanted, it's in my price range. I get a good look at the bay. My wife will love it. It's full of trees. There's trees all over the place. It'll be a great place for us to live. It'll be a wonderful place for us to live. But it's in the middle of a neighborhood in San Carlos that has no main streets. And so you've got to zigzag to get out of there. It'll probably be 15, 20 minutes for me to just get to church, and like I said, and it's just tucked away in this little, neighborhood. And it looks, but it's funny because I looked at the rooms, the size of the rooms and everything. It's hilarious. It's got it checks all the boxes of everything that I need. So it must be God, It's like, no, it's not. It's the devil. I know it's the devil, but yet I'm quite confident that the vast majority of Christians would just jump on it. Say, oh, I got to get this before it goes away because I don't want to miss God. Yeah, but you're going to be in the wrong neighborhood. Yeah, it doesn't matter. This is what I want. Yeah, but it's not going to, the area that we're outreaching in the area that the church is reaching into, it's nowhere near there. Yeah, I know, but it doesn't matter. I'll just drive. I'll just do this. I'll do that. And the truth of the matter is it will be, I will just serve God when I have time and when it's convenient. But this is what I really want, so flexibility. It's really difficult, when you're not used to being like that, to be able to say no to things like that, that are what exactly, it's what you want, already. No, that's not. It's not.
How does that affect your future? Like, being flexible like that. So, okay, you're flexible for flexible sake, or what?
Yeah.
Like, how does that affect?
As a Christian, as a Christian, if you're inflexible, you won't do anything for God. Like I said, that's the thing is that over the years, generally speaking, Christians who aren't really doing anything for God over the years do less. They just do less. In our church, I've been here for 18 years, 15 years, I think, 15 years. And, most of the people who have been in the church were in the church as young single people did way more than they're doing now, way more. And now, they won't do anything unless they're told to, as far as just coming up with ideas and doing things. It's not even on their radar anymore to just come up with ideas to do for God. It's everything has to be, it has to be a church event, something that's been planned by somebody else, and they'll come to the events, but they don't plan any events anymore. But yet when they were younger, they were very, very into it and would plan events and things like that. And now they don't plan anything anymore. And the reason is because of the issue of flexibility. And so now they're doing less for God, unless God drops something in their lap to do, they don't do it. And it's tragic, it's very, very tragic. But yet here are young people, in the church now, that are very, very excited about wanting to do something for God. And people who have been flexible during their salvation, they're still planning and making, being involved in things, and so it's you being flexible is everything. Mm-hmm. When it comes right down to it, it's everything.
So do you think that, like, let's try and like broaden this range a little bit, because we're talking about we have been talking about like younger ages. So as you get older, and you can see this. I don't know actually all that. I don't think. Do you know if there's like actually confirmed ages of the disciples? It seems like there was like a range of like estimated 16s
in there,
to 30s.
Young, definitely young.
young.
Definitely
So,
young. Most of them were not married.
Yeah.
Peter was married, but didn't have any kids.
Yeah.
And so it's, fairly young. You're right. The Bible doesn't actually say the age, but they were definitely young men.
Yeah. So my question is like, as you get older, and if you haven't been, because let's just say like some think that Peter was probably around 30. I mean, well, let me ask you this: do you think 30 is still young? You're 60.
No,
so
no.
30, okay, so 30 is not young.
No,
okay, fair. No, that's good. That's why I'm asking.
No, I don't. No, not at all. Not at all.
So
not at all.
So now, when you start getting to a point, now he's married, he's got a job. It looks like chances are he's going to take over his father's business. He's that's kind of the route that he's going. He's working as a fisherman, and so life is becoming steady, right? Or has become steady at that point. And so how do you, when you become a Christian, when you become a convert, what is the key to becoming flexible? What is the thing that makes it? Let's say you're an older Christian. You're in your 30s. I am in my 30s, so I can say this. But like, how do you?
Late, it's over. You're screwed.
No. According to Pastor Mitchell, until I'm 40. I have until I'm 40 to figure this thing out.
You have until you're 40 to figure it out. Yes, but
when I'm 40, I'm done. Yeah, right. So
you spent your youth. So
yeah, exactly. So I could argue that actually.
No, you can't.
I can.
No, you
can't. We've had this conversation before. I feel like
there's no point. You've spent your youth. It's over. It's finished.
Between 0 to 40, you're still a youth biblically.
No,
apparently.
no. Oh, please. Yeah, when you lived 800 years. Yeah. It's not. Yeah.
Okay. So, but my question is really, like, how do you? What is the key to becoming flexible? Is this something you can just pray for and God gives it to you? Is it?
What an interesting question. Yeah, this is a question I've been thinking about because because it's so easy to become inflexible. How do you become flexible? I don't have a real easy answer for that because I'm watching. Oh, okay, I'll tell you what I've been doing recently. Is because I've had some conversations with some people who have become inflexible and weren't always inflexible. And what I have been doing is trying to get them to get to the root. Go for the deepest root problem and tackle it. Whatever it is, your deepest root problem. All the time, so all the time people are, I want to change. So we pray, read our Bible, go to church, blah, 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 blah. And we do all this stuff and then we don't change. It lasts for a couple of weeks or whatever. I would say you need to pray and you need to ask God, what is the deepest root problem in your life? And go after that with everything that you have. I mean, literally go after it like nobody's business and overcome it. And get victory. Don't go after the little tiny roots, say, oh, this one's really big. No. Ask God to show you the really deep root, the one that is causing you the most trouble. Because it will be more than likely an attitude. More than likely. It won't be some physical thing. It'll be an attitude. And if you will address that, like I said, like nobody's business, you will find a way. Like one conversation that I was having was I told the person, I said, I think if you will attack being on time, that will change everything. Because it just always, a lot of positive attributes, but one of the most negative attributes is just always late, always late. And when I had mentioned that, they said, yeah, I'm always late because I don't care. And I said, yeah. I said, and so you're really dealing with an attitude there. And I said, so my recommendation is that you will attack being late. So you're not late to anything. You're always on time to everything or early all the time. And I said, and I think what you'll find is you will find that you will begin to care. Because you force yourself to be on time. You'll start to reap the benefits of being on time and then you'll care, because of how it makes you feel. Being late and not caring that affects you personally. It's interesting to see people that've got attitudes and all kinds of muck that's going on inside of them. And the truth is that when they're by themselves, they really don't they don't like it. They don't like being by themselves. They don't like being with themselves because they really don't like themselves, And so when you start doing things that begin to come against the, things that are the reason, subconsciously, they're the reasons why you don't like yourself. And so when you attack them, you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed at how much transformation that will come in your life when you will just simply attack the deepest root issue. And that's why I said you need to pray. You need to ask God, what is the root issue? Why is it, look at your life. I mean, I think first of all, there has to be an honesty. Look at your life and assess your life, with the template of the Word of God. And, ask yourself, I mean, listen, if you're lukewarm, you're lukewarm. If you're bitter, you're bitter. If you're lazy, you're lazy. Whatever it is, if it's what you are, it's what you are. Stop making excuses about it. And just simply start writing things down. Maybe you can make a list, and then look for the worst one. Which is it that is really the worst one? Go after that. Go after the worst one, and then see what it does. And I think you'll find that you will like changing. You enjoy changing, and then when you start doing that, when you start kind of getting that excited, thing of I've changed, I've actually changed something in my life, not, that's why I don't think a little thing, because a little thing is easy to make little changes and you don't recognize when you go back to them, when you stop doing that little thing. But if you go after the big things, then you'll find that you begin to enjoy change, and then it will stir you to want to be changing more, because if I change more, will I like myself even more? And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. And you'll be able to face the problems, the issues in your life. You'll be able to face things in yourself that you've never been able to face before, because you have overcome, you have defeated, that issue. Because the truth is, we can overcome everything in Jesus. I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. That's another reason to get saved, is that, trying to change in your own power is impossible. But, at least, things like what I'm talking about right now. Whereas if you're saved and you really go after it, and you're praying, you're saying, God, change me. I don't want this in my life anymore. And it goes away. You have a reference point. You say, I can do this. I can do this. I don't have to have attitudes. I don't have to be bitter. I don't have to be lazy. I don't have to, all these things. I don't have to. I can be an overcoming Christian. And it's amazing, what you can do.
He's asking if flexibility would flexibility be based on how much you genuinely want to serve God? Is it a desire factor?
I would say it's more of a desperation factor than a desire factor. It's too easy to say, that, I don't genuinely want to serve God. I don't see this. This is the thing I think is interesting, is just having conversations. Some Friday there were a lot of tears, and and a lot of people on the verge of tears, and I don't think they are crying because they're upset because they want to be told what a great Christian they are. They're upset because they've been trying. They've genuinely been trying and just can't get breakthrough. And they really do want it. They really do desire to have breakthrough. And so it's not that they don't want to serve God. It's just when you are not having breakthrough, you turn to excuses. You begin to live a life of just excuses. And because you're the way our minds work as humans, our minds cannot handle being shown that we are losers all the time, so we stop. We have to change the criteria. We have to change the benchmarks or the bars. We have to say, no, I'm a super Christian, even though I don't do anything that's worthy of being called a super Christian, simply because we're trying to get our conscience, our subconscious mind, to relax and leave us alone. That because that's where conviction comes from. The conviction comes into our conscious mind from our subconscious mind. And so, and God working through our conscience. It's how he does it. But our conscience all of a sudden goes, whoa, wait a minute. So that whoa, wait a minute is when something that was in our subconscious goes into our conscious. Like what happened to those I mentioned about the Friday, is these are people, I'm good. I'm not good. I'm not good. That was something that was in their subconscious that came out, and into their conscious mind through their conscience. And this is a process that God uses to be able to help us. And so if you've seared your conscience by refusing to look at the things that keep popping out of your subconscious mind, then you're not going to be able to change. So that's why I say if you go after the major thing, you're going to be dealing with so many levels of broken things in your life all at once that when you get victory over it, you'll realize, you're on the right path, and you'll want to do more, because now it just will get easier from there on out.
So like when you're talking about attacking these small things, is this like some, trying to think of an example, but like, is this something that, how does God help you with this stuff?
Attacking the small things or the big things?
Big things. So you're trying to change, you're breakthrough.
Okay, yeah, you want break. Well, how does God help you? Because, God created your subconscious, your conscious, and your conscience. God created all those things. And so being in tune with him is where repair comes. You can't repair these things on your own. And you need repair. But our problem is that we take a hammer to our subconscious in frustration because we can't change. So I've shared before how I got all upset because I was working on my car, frustrated. I needed to get my car done so I could go out and go cruising with my friends, and I was so angry because it was not cooperating. And I turned around and I threw a wrench, and it hit the window, and I broke the window. I broke the front window, and the windshield, and I just made things worse. And that's what we do. We do that. We get all frustrated, and we take a hammer to our subconscious and leave me alone, basically. And so, our subconscious is destroyed, and we wonder why we can't change, but that's why we can't change, is because we don't want to change, and it's not that we don't want to change. It's that we don't want to know that we need to change. That's our problem. It really does come to that, because we get tired of hearing that we need to change. And so we get frustrated. Whereas when you are praying and you're saying, God, I need to change, that's all there is to it. And then you change, you realize changing is not such a horrible thing. You fixed your subconscious mind, and now it's able to, God's able to convict us of things, and it can pop into our conscious mind through our conscience. And we go, I got to deal with that. Yeah, I got to deal with that. That's all there is to it, And so you can hear, as I mentioned this about listening to sermons, and that's what happens. You're in a sermon, and you're hearing a sermon, and you've been a Christian for a while, and you hear about something that new converts are doing that you're not doing, and you go, oh, God, I remember when I used to do that as a new convert. Man, God help me. And you go to the altar and you just pray and ask God to help you, and then you go away and then you start doing it, because you've forgotten. It's not that you're a rebel or anything like that. You've just forgotten, you've let it go, you've gotten lazy or whatever. And so you address the situation, and then you're back on track again, and when that happens 3 times a week, you can stay on top of things, because the Spirit of God's always convicting you of things so that you can change, so that you can stay on top of things and you can stay where you're supposed to be. So you don't have to, I often talk about, think about, your early years of your Christianity. Think about the later years of your Christianity. Draw a line between those two things. And is it going up, down, staying the same? What's it doing? And the truth of the matter is that most people are just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to draw a line between those two, because I know what I'll find. I won't find that I'm growing. I will find that I'm the same as I've been for years. And so I'm not going to draw a line. They're not going to do it. You know, and so they hear sermons, and it's like sermons just go in one ear and out the other.
Kay says good night from Rhode Island. Good night, Kay. Joining. So, last question.
Last question.
All that applicable to your young or your everything you just said. Is there, in other words, is there? Because there seems like there's no real, you know.
Well, yeah, because part of the problem when you're young, it's not as offensive for you to know that you're wrong. Because you're used to being wrong as a kid. Your parents are telling you wrong. Your teachers are telling you wrong. Everybody's telling you you're wrong. So you're kind of used to it. Your boss is telling you you're wrong. But you get to a certain age where you say, I don't want anybody telling me I'm wrong anymore. And that's when you stop growing. That's when you become as old as you're going to be. You know, whether you're 30 or 80, you'll be the same because nobody's telling you what to do anymore. You're listening. And so yes, I mean, that's the only way out, you know, of stagnancy, of inflexibility. That's the only way out, is you've got to go after the deepest thing, in my opinion anyway. You've got to go after, I'll let you know in a few months. I've got some experiments going with people in church that I've specifically told them to do this. So I'll be curious to see how it goes. But that's, but I think it is. I think that's a major issue is if you are inflexible, you will not grow. And I think that if you're going to grow after a certain period of time, you have to do something drastic. You can't just expect that you're just going to do one or two things and everything's going to change. You have to take some drastic measures to change.
Very cool.
Okay.
Tonight was a good night. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. And we invite you to come back next week. We will have a special podcast next week, a bit unique from what we typically do. More information about that on our YouTube page. The thumbnail will be out soon. And you can also find more information about us on our website. Tons of content on YouTube and more to come in the future. We invite you to join us in person. We have a midweek service tomorrow night, and those service times will be up in about 3 seconds. We'll see you guys next time.